So last week, I shared our need for others during difficult times. And hopefully you thought about that and reached out to people this week as you needed them. But an important part of our growth is learning to help ourselves as well. And sometimes we're actually the cause of our inability to help ourselves. Mary Bright sent me a follow-up email last week after my message about needing one another. But actually, it also applied to today from my perspective. She had first referenced how maybe part of the problem that we don't reach out to one another is because we all Google everything, and we think we find the answers through Google, right? Every time you need help, what do? Google, right? Versus call a friend. Call somebody who would actually be a human voice on the other end. And sometimes those Google searches actually lead us to greater despair than we already had. Oh God, I'm dying. Right? Yeah, if I'm glad I couldn't see to Google what was going on with my eyes. I'm pretty sure I would have crawled into bed and never gotten out. But in her message, she also pointed out about how such research creates fear. As I read her message, I thought the fear that we may have when we go down that rabbit hole can not only scare us, but make our circumstances actually worse. Because now we start projecting symptoms we actually didn't have into the equation. Anybody done that before? Oh, I got that pain. It said pain, right leg. Oh, I suddenly feel a pain in my jaw. I must be having a heart attack, right? You never did that, right? Okay. But when we're facing challenging or devastating circumstances, we need to be mindful that we're already upset and feeling a bit helpless. So we become impatient in trying to make sense of our experiences. And when we do, we're just going to fall into greater depths of despair. Now, it's a pattern. We all know our own behavioral patterns. It's a pattern. We're going to repeat it every single time we face it. Every class I took in the last 2.5 years, on top of my first ordination in all those years, every class I started the same way. Oh God, I wonder if this is going to be difficult. And then I'd have to say, well, you don't know what it is. Take a breath. But I recognize it's an old pattern. Those are just patterns. But if we talk to them and we recognize them, we aren't intimidated by them. We appreciate it's just old stuff. Let it go. So if we can recognize the signs early, we could actually be of help to ourselves. Now, let's look at this from a human perspective. It's difficult. Our circumstances may be difficult. People may be difficult. And that can be a catalyst for our anger and our resentment, which in turn will cause us to lash out to people who did nothing to us, and sometimes actually be unkind. And these people are thinking, I have no idea why you're upset. But the only way for us to break the pattern is by taking time to understand what's going on in our life from a spiritual perspective. We're constantly moving to the human perspective, not the spiritual perspective. And how we know that is by how we're always filling in the gaps of the story with negativity. What we don't know is usually not replaced with positive thinking. It is usually our go-to to think negatively, not positively. So seeing beyond our circumstances requires us understanding that life is not determined by what is around us, by what's going on around us. It is determined by what is living within us. Think that through for a moment. It's not about what's living outside of us, it's about what's living in us. So, how do we know what's going on inside of us? We have to pay attention. That's where spiritual understanding comes to play. We have to go within and see it and feel it. What's going on? What do I know from a truth perspective, not a human perspective? On the surface, the human perspective, it all looks pretty scary. But from a truth perspective, divine order is going to prevail, and we are going to be okay. We always are. No matter what any one of us has been through in our lifetime, we're okay. We made it. We did it. It was an experience. We move on. And it's not our circumstances or people, it's the value we place on what's happening. Because you see, we're assigning meaning to every single thing. In fact, how many of us actually say, I wonder what that meant? I wonder what they meant when they said that. I wonder what I'm supposed to take from that. Do you hear yourself in my words? Okay, we do it. We all do it. Well, what am I supposed to do with that information? Here comes the lightning bolt of divine order. Boom, there it is. And what do? I don't know what to do with this. So take a breath. You notice we never say, I am confident I will know what to do with this. We don't. We just have that moment of angst that we won't be able to figure it out. In the book club I'm doing right now, many of you are participating, we've been discussing Gary Simmons' book, The I, letter I, of the storm, and he talks a lot about what we experience and why. But one of the most profound things in the book is this. He says, I make my life mean what it means. Think that through for a minute. I am the one making my life mean what it means. He says life doesn't happen to us. Life happens through us. And what I see is what I get. What I see will be what I get. And in fact, what I'm living right now is what I must have seen, because I'm continuing to feed it. Now, that doesn't mean I saw an accident, I made an accident happen. It means, what did I do with the accident when it happened? That's what it means. You don't need to sit around trying to figure out, why did I bring this on? You have to ask yourself, what can I do with this experience I'm having? What can I learn? How can I grow? How can I be a better person because of it? I'm definitely a better person with this most recent experience, because I had to trust so many people just to be able to see the kitchen. That was a big deal for me. But I feel so proud of myself. I kept trying to ease in. Even the fear was getting to me, but I kept easing in, trusting that this is for me to learn from. How many people will I be able to help because I went through this? In every circumstance, we are deciding how important or how critical the situation is, which means we're going to get to decide how much bandwidth anything takes up in our consciousness. How much time or in space are you going to let it take up? Gary Simmons also asks us to consider these two questions. Do you fill in the gaps with your worst fears, creating your worst nightmares when you're facing a situation? Check. Or do you fill in the gaps with positive thoughts, creating the best possible outcome? And that's also a check. So most of us are pretty good at doing both, but our go-to should simply be the positive. How will I get through this? What can I learn? If something or someone is consuming us, we are responsible because we determined the amount of attention we were going to give them. We decided how much brain space they were going to take up. Why? Why are they more important than us? There is no situation or person making anything happen outside of us. It's all on us. You know, Luis shares many valuable insights with me throughout the week. Always. I'm always appreciative. Sometimes it's a quote, sometimes a video or an article. This past week, one of the fun things that he sent me was from a speech Taylor Swift gave at a commencement. I don't know if any of you saw it, but she used the term catch and release, which I'd never heard it put quite like that. I want to read you just two statements. She said, life can be heavy, especially if you try to carry it all at once. Part of growing up and moving into new chapters of your life is about catch and release. You can't carry all things. Decide what is yours to hold and let go of the rest. Catch and release. Now, it's a great concept. When you're fishing, catch and release means you take the fish, you let it go, you don't eat it. That's what it means. But in this case, what it says is take it and decide whether you're going to keep it. Let it go. Let it go back where it came from. Whoever said what to whom, let it go back where it came from. Don't hold on to it. I thought it was a great reminder because it will help us stop diminishing our energy. Maybe we'll stop giving our power away. We're always giving our power away. I'm strong, I'm confident, until someone said something. Then I'm just like a mushmelon. Okay, we don't need to be like that. We're people with the most divine spirit within us. We are godly. Everyone is godly. Even that person that said what you didn't want to hear. We're all of divine spirit. Take the power back. And while it's perfectly okay for us to be upset, we need to remember we have to respond and not react to things. Responding gives us a chance to be empowered. Reacting takes our power away and puts us in emotional states that do not help us. And it's perfectly okay and normal to have our reactions, but we aren't going to grow spiritually when we are constantly in reaction mode. The truth is that nothing is happening to us at any given time that could be considered permanent. Nothing. Because every time the sun goes down and comes up, it's a new day. And we can start again. Assigning any belief of permanence and giving our power away is human thought, but not a reality of spiritual truth. From a place of truth, we have to understand that all of what we are experiencing is meant for us to grow. And the more we take on our experiences with confidence, the more growth and understanding we will have. We have to break that cycle of being afraid, break the cycle of old patterns. The most important part, though, is understanding it's our inner world and not our outer world that has to become the center of attention. What's going on in me, not what's going on outside of me. That's your distraction. What's happening outside is the distraction. What's going on the inside is what will help us get to a spiritual truth and help ourselves. We can't be stuck in the circumstances that surround us, because if we do, it's going to be like quicksand, and it's going to pull us down into the abyss, and it'll be really hard to get out. So we're going to have to figure out how to handle our experiences in a better way. The late Reverend Tom Costa had a perfect saying that I revisit on a regular basis. He says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I do not have to build a condo there." I love that saying. So it can be dark and it can be scary. Don't stay there. Dr. Ernest Holmes also offers us this suggestion, which I have always found useful. He says, each day is a fresh beginning, every day made new. And what I want to remind us is that the minute we open our eyes every day, we have a choice to make. Will we help ourselves today? Will we step away from all of the things that have preoccupied us on the outside? And will we allow our spiritual truth to help us see beyond our circumstances? While the circumstances that concerned us yesterday may still be a concern today, how much space are we going to allow it to occupy? Let's take a look at our lessons. Seeing beyond our circumstances can help us daily if we are willing to first invest time in the spiritual value of everything, break the patterns of our behaviors. Number 2, to recognize the source of our upset. It is definitely not the people. It's the attention we assigned to those people. Number 3, to choose whether to react or to respond, and to stop giving our power away. And number 4, to learn there is benefit in life disruptions because they force us to make changes in our life. Our affirmation today is, I am seeing beyond my circumstances. Let's say that together. I am seeing beyond my circumstances. And the quote for today is, when circumstances hinder us from seeing clearly, we must rely on our spiritual eyes to see what our physical eyes cannot. Let's take that in for a moment. So we give thanks for the spiritual guidance that is always available to us, and to recognize that at any given moment, we can choose to see beyond our circumstances by focusing on our inner world and not our outer world. We appreciate the gift of free will, which allows us to choose how much space any person or thing occupies in our consciousness. And so we say, thank you, God. Amen.